Based on the theory that dogs look like their owners, is your next dog going to be an Afghan hound?
Now, is never an option?
Absolutely not, is the answer.
Welcome to Let's Boot Snoots. I'm Heidi.
And my name is Vero.
Today I'm excited about our show, and so excited that I cannot do the intro. Vero must do it for me.
All right, I'll do the
Take it
intro
away,
then.
Vero.
We have a special guest on the show today. He's from Nova Scotia, Canada. He's gone from dog walker to pet groomer to training hunting dogs and now a professional dog trainer. He's funny and entertaining, and you can catch him on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and he has his own podcast. We would like to welcome from Doggett Style Dog Training, Evan Doggett.
Hey!
Welcome to the show.
Bonjour.
Yay!
Bonjour.
Bonjour. How's it going?
It always gets a little awkward when then people are like, "Je la da la da la la," in French, and I'm just like, bonjour.
Every time, eh?
Yeah. My wife's French, so I practice my French every day where I go,
Oui.
And then that's about it.
I have limited French as well, and I speak a lot of franglais on the show, so we welcome it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Well, if you ever need to practice, I'm here.
Yeah, when my wife saw your name, she's like, Veronique, and I was like, yeah, I guess she's French.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Losing it a little bit though, but yeah, French family.
Cool.
All right. So I've mentioned a few of your dog-related jobs that you've had in the past in the intro.
Yep.
What was your path into becoming a dog trainer? So how did you decide, what made you decide to become a dog trainer?
It was kind of a full circle thing. So my dad was a Mountie, for those of you listening from the States. Those are the handsome buggers riding horses around our police. They don't ride horses so much anymore, but the red serge, the red jacket guys, my dad was one of those. And so when I saw my first K9 unit police officer, what my dad was plus a dog, I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I was 8 when that happened, and I grew up with that plan till we moved around. We went from Nova Scotia right to Depot where they train the Mounties. So we lived there for 3 years, and that was like, oh my God, I definitely want to do this. Imagine being like 12 years old, driving on the track in police cars and riding the musical ride horses, which was another obsession.
That is one of my questions for all the Mountie people that I met. I'm like, do you do the parade, the musical ride? It's like a huge parade for anyone who's listening in from out of country that the Mounties put on, right? I remember going as a kid too. So I'm always like, did you do the parade? Were you a part of the parade?
And it's an option. Anybody, you don't have to have my uncle. There's several Mounties in my family. My mom actually became a Mountie at like age 42.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, which is just insane. But I take after I take after my mom. And so I was riding musical ride horses and shooting guns and driving in cars and swimming in the Olympic ice swimming pool. So I was like, this is what I want to do. But as I grew older and we traveled and I got into my rebellious teenage years, I said I'd rather, be a rebellious teen than think about becoming a cop. And you also, as the son of a police officer, you get to see the grind that is being a police officer, right? Dealing with arseholes on the inside and the outside, and every day is just dealing with conflict. So I decided that I was going to become a teacher, but I didn't have the focus right after high school, and my parents were like, well, we're definitely not paying for university, so you can go and party. So I went and traveled Europe for a year, and then South America for a year. It was, Europe, Africa, South America, back to Ottawa. And then one day I was in Colombia, Bogota, Colombia, and I had my first dog in Colombia and I was teaching English as a second language, and I was taking my dog to school with me. And I've always been dog crazed ever since I was a little kid. You know, we had dogs growing up, miniature poodles, which, like, in hindsight, just looking back at, like, how terrible they were.
Yes.
And why didn't anybody do anything about them?
Yes, I have the same experience. Like once you know, you look back and you're like, what was I doing? What was I thinking?
Yeah, well, and I, like, literally, I've got a scar on my chin from our first dog, which was a Lhasa Apso. So, but I remember what happened, and the dog is the one who got in trouble. But I was literally, like, crawling under the recliner trying to get the dog that was clearly terrified, and it bit me in the chin. And my parents threw up their hands and went, "Well, the dog's aggressive." Well,
Yeah.
where the hell were they?
Yeah.
Who was watching the dog, or the kid, or anybody? And so we got rid of him, you know, and sure, there's a little bit of guilt there, which is hilarious, right? As an adult, I'm still, you know, reminiscing over what I did, as a 6-year-old. And so, and this dimple was given to me by a dog, a bit in the face, and I got a hole in my calf so just as a child, just stunned around dogs, nobody teaching me what to do, what not to do. And equally just just a little bit thick in the head, I guess. So became a dog trainer. But I had a dog in Colombia, and I got a call from my parents one day that said, "Evan, congratulations, you got into St. FX University." And I said, "Oh, that's weird. I didn't apply." And they said, "We applied for you. You're coming home." Yeah, literally. I found when my mom, it was like, you know, officially I'm never moving back in with my parents, she gave me a box of just the remaining stuff from their house, and I found the application letter to St. FX written, you know, from me. Oh man. Anyway, so yeah.
So did
and
you
then
end up going to university?
Yeah, went to X, got the wrong ring. Yeah, no, right ring. Went to X, got the ring and the degree. And in my third year, I did an exchange to Argentina. And, you know, the theme of partying continued as one does in university. But I was dating my now wife, and she's a couple years older than me, and she's Quebecois, which means you know, Quebecers get their partying done when they're like 16.
Yes.
They get it out of their system
Yep.
from 12
Yep.
to 16.
Yep.
You know? And so she was a lot more mature than me, and was just like, "This is, you know, I don't want to be in a long-term relationship with a kid, basically."
Yeah.
And so I came back, cut the exchange short to mend that relationship, and I was like, I know what will make my life more settled: a dog. And just put it all on the dog. And so I got Rush. So I came back. It was came back to patch up the relationship. She was working full time in Montreal, and so I was staying there. And I went, I'm just going to go and walk dogs at the SPCA. Well, that lasted about 2 hours, and I left with a dog.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was not hilarious at the time.
Well, no, I doubt it.
Yeah,
but
her and her 2 siblings, she was living with, deathly allergic to dogs.
Oh.
And I show up with this pit bull mix. An hour. Yeah, I guess I was at the SPCA for more like 5 hours, because I was an hour late to pick her up.
Was this during the pit bull like Rush ban, or had that even started yet?
I don't know. That would have been 2011, 10.
Oh, it's close to it. They were definitely talking about it at that point. Yeah.
So Rush was like a boxer pitty mix. I mean, you definitely look at him and think he's a pit bull, or what would be classified as one. And that was the beginning of the beginning. And her father talked her into staying with me, and that I'm not a complete knucklehead, and that he's just like, he's just a guy, you know, at least he's trying to do a loving thing. And that's literally the only reason that we're together, because her dad was like, he's just being a nice guy, give him a chance.
It's just a dude.
You know,
it's a dude
young
thing.
And dumb.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning, and then I was just spending as much time with my dog as I was on university. And because I was a mature student, I did care about university. Mature. I was a couple of years older than everybody else because I had traveled before. And that was the beginning. I in fourth year, I guess when I had Rush, I was walking dogs at a local new doggy daycare. I was taking packs of dogs from there, starting my own business. I've always had businesses, whether it was lawn care or this or that, or I've always been a hardworking kid because my parents never gave me anything, so they just said,
So
go get a
when
job.
did you start learning like the sort of ins and outs of the dog training? Like when you were pack walking, like did you have like a good knowledge base at that point, or
I
where
was
did it
just
come
like
from?
obsessively watching Caesar Milan. That
Okay.
was the
Yeah.
era of Caesar Milan was still on TV, so I just ripped all the seasons of Caesar Milan and was just watching them on repeat and things like that. And that's the thing that I would say, like, as much as you see on TV, it's Hollywood. You have to remember that it's Hollywood, and the things. While Caesar Milan is amazing, and like, yeah, he can walk 40 dogs at the same time. Doing the Hollywood style of dog training stuff it's not real. Dogs
No.
take time. Relationships
Yeah.
take time.
And it's
And
just
so,
like it's a learning thing too. Like I'm currently in school for a master's in education and stuff, and you can watch a video, but until you're out there with your dog and learning the behaviors and seeing which way they're turning or what their ears are doing or reading the body language, it's like it's hard to put it from video into actual practice, and that's why
yeah.
we have the Q&As, right? Like a lot of people are like, I'm trying that, but he keeps jumping or he keeps doing this, and it's I find that aspect, like finding the little things, like the fine tuning of it all, to
Yeah,
be the
and especially
difficult
when you
part.
get into a pack dynamic, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks so
it's a
easy on the
totally
videos, and then
Yeah.
you go to do it, and it's just like, why is this so awkward? It looks so easy in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's understanding the pack dynamic stuff, and that's what always
Hmm.
Yeah.
intrigued me the most was the pack dynamic stuff
Mhm.
because I mean, Russia and Vega have trained more dogs than I ever will, kind
Yeah.
of thing, right? Like they've done the
Yeah.
majority of the heavy lifting, and so it was a great place to start walking a pack of dogs and being around a doggy daycare
So
because
would
it
you take
allowed
Rush
me.
with you?
Oh yeah, he
W-
went
eh,
everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere that he was allowed to go, and even then he was still going places.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, so I was walking dogs, and then started went to a groomers during fourth year as well, and I was like dairy farming during university as
Oh
well.
my.
And
Wow.
so yeah, I've always had like multiple jobs,
Mhm.
and so I went to a groomers and started working there as well. I just was like, hey, can I volunteer? Anyone that's listening about thinking about getting into the pet space is like, just don't always expect to get paid.
Yeah.
Expect
Yep.
not to get
Yeah,
paid
no, it's true.
if you want to learn,
It's true.
And so I started volunteering there and then started getting paid. And then one day this lady came in that was like an amateur groomer, like a self-taught groomer came in and was like, oh my God, Caesar Milan has this course and I've been applying. And he was also coming to Nova Scotia to do his tour thing. So saw the tour presentation and then signed up for this Caesar Milan experience thing and, flew Rush with me. And, basically, went out there and discovered that this is actually what I want to do. That was in fourth year university in February. And then that I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So rather than applying to teachers college or, going back to X for education, I finished university and went out to BC to train hunting dogs. That was the next step.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then so from training the hunting dogs, then like how did you get from the hunting aspect of things to like where you are now and the services
So
that you
yeah,
provide now?
when I was in BC training hunting dogs, I also was doing grooming. And it's what I learned during the hunting dogs is also how I don't want to train dogs. So
Mhm.
there's essentially like kind of three schools of thought. There's the purely positive, which is
Yep.
the dominating sector of give the dog a cookie, redirect him to a cookie kind of thing,
Mhm.
and reward the dog for doing the right thing. Amazing, but limited, obviously, because you're only using one
Mhm.
side of the spectrum. And then the opposite, which is compulsion, which is put pressure on the dog till they do the thing, and then release the pressure. And then, so old school compulsion kind of thing. And then there's a balanced approach, which is use both without going to the extreme of either.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? Don't solely depend on pressure. Don't solely depend on positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if I squeeze your arm and I go, toca la pared, and you don't speak Spanish,
Yep.
you're not gonna get it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how happy or how hard I squeeze or any of that stuff. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you'll
Exactly.
never understand. But
Yeah.
if I teach you through reward-based what toca la pared means,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get distracted by something and I put a little bit of pressure on you, then it snaps you out of that distraction and puts you back onto focus. So that's what I do. I do a balanced approach to training, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then it just comes down to having the right tools. But yeah, I left BC because I knew that I quit working at the training facility that I was working at. I started doing grooming full time and then training clients from grooming. I got the reputation as the guy that could groom aggressive dogs, which was fun. Groomed a wolf hybrid, which was crazy. The only person that could touch him was the owner. And it took me 4.5 hours, and we took 3 garbage bags of fluff off of him.
Oh my God.
And so big bugger. So that was quite the experience. And then I had already booked a ticket to Virginia to study nutrition with the Volhards. And I just wanted to know everything. You know, once you get into something, you're like, I want to know everything about everything. Right. Yeah. So that's where I was like, okay, I want to, I had heard from one of the instructors at the Cesar Millan course about Wendy Volhard, and that she's, you know, this amazing person teaching nutrition, homeopathy, and all this natural living stuff. And so I knew that I would never be able to afford land and be able to see my dreams come true in BC, because it's just crazy. And then so came back to Nova Scotia, went to Virginia, did that, and then saw even more about training and even more about the impacts of nutrition and chiropractic and herbs and going tick free and medication free as much as possible, and just seeing, like, when I saw this 18-year-old lab doing retrieves, she wasn't doing like 100-yard retrieves, but she was still at 18 still going.
Wow.
Was like, okay, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to incorporate that. Came back to Nova Scotia and then found a place to rent. My wife was calling around looking for places to rent, and she's like, I'm tired of calling places. Can you call? First place I called, he said, yeah, I've got a 30 by 30 shop. It's got a fence around it. It'd be great if you're a carpenter. It's like, well, I'm not a carpenter. What do you use it for? And he said, oh, I've got a dog boarding facility.
Oh, no way.
You can keep all the fencing, all the bowls, all the. So we were there right on the water.
It's like it was meant to be, Evan.
Ooh.
It was 100% meant to be. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that was the next phase. Started Nature's Cure dog training. That's actually what my company is legally called, is Nature's Cure.
Really?
And it was always about getting into nature with dogs, and any dogs that are extremely stressed out, dogs that have PTSD, high anxiety, social problems. It's about getting them out into nature and letting them be with other dogs. Obviously that, you need to have things like reliable recall and whatnot, which brings you back to training. But even if they're just on a leash and you go out and sit in nature on a consistent basis, will just detox them. It's what they need to do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, my question is about the grooming, because I've known several different people who have done like professional grooming before, and they always seem to give it up. Like, there's a nurse that I work with, and she left dog grooming to nursing, and I was like, why?
Because it's a hateful job. That's
really.
Oh, it's horrible. Well, think about it. Like, most people don't do the thing that they should do. So that, like, the way you raise a puppy is to go, I want you to be bomb proof. In my mind, what that means is that you can take your dog anywhere and they don't, under any circumstances, they don't freak out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So in order to have a bomb proof dog with grooming, you take them to the groomers when they're 8 weeks old, not to get groomed, just to be in the environment. And then you take them back at 12 weeks, and then you take them back at 16 weeks. And at 16 weeks or 12 weeks, they get their first bath and maybe a little nail trim and whatever. Yeah. But it's like a 10-minute ordeal. And then you take them at 6 months for their first full grooming. And then you take them at 8 months, which is only 2 months after, which most people go like groom their dogs twice a year. So it's this horrific event. So what most people do is they wait till the dog's one
Yep.
to get its nails cut for the first time, to get groomed for the first time. So the
Yeah.
dog is like, and they're not used to being handled. They're not used to having someone stick a finger in their ear or pull, something out of their, underbelly or anything like that. So you're literally just being, I mean, when you don't brush your hair for a couple of days and you got knots, imagine
Yeah.
that your whole
Body is like
head
that. Yeah.
for 6 months
Yeah.
with just knots. And so so the dogs are just like agitated, stressed out, whatever. You've got people that are not understanding that you had to shave the dog because the whole dog is covered in mats, and so the
Yeah.
dog comes out looking like a skinned rat, and they're
then
like, "Oh my god!" And you took
What did you
20
do to my
minutes
dog?
longer.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah, you traumatized my dog, and whatever. And it's like, well, it's more. There's more trauma to not shaving the dog than to shave the
than
dog,
trying to
kind
get
of
all
thing.
those
So
knots.
What I'm noticing with businesses though, and because like I say, this is an industry that's like just growing exponentially like by the day, is that I'm
yeah,
finding that businesses are starting to become more picky about who they provide their services to. So
sure.
an example of this is there was a place we did an episode on this a couple of weeks ago about the variety of different dog parks in our area. And Vero tried one out, and to be able so they have a dog park, and it's a private park where you can go, but you have
Oh,
to go for an
interesting.
introductory session and show that you have a good recall and that your dog has good manners before they let you, before they provide you with membership to their park. And I'm wondering if like, I found that very interesting because like I think when you have a business, it's like you want income, you want revenue, you want to market, and it's all about like customer, customer, customer. But um especially in an industry like this, you need to make sure that it's like safe. And I don't know what the liabilities are like involved in a business with dogs, that people are starting to put conditions on their terms of service, right, on that side, which I find interesting. And I would be curious to know if I started like a grooming thing, it would be like, well, no, it needs to be a dog that's socialized to grooming, because I'm not going to be wrestling your dog and shaving him down and having you upset with me at the end of the whole process, you know?
Right. I think
I'd
it
be
always comes down to education,
yeah.
right? It
Yep.
always comes down to education, and so what that means is letting people know what they need to do in order to be part of your business,
Mhm.
right? So like,
Right.
sure, you can have a 5-year-old dog that's never been here before and has, maybe it's a rescue and it's never been groomed. Okay, so what that means is our first session, which you're going to be charged for, is an introduction grooming,
Yeah.
right? Comes in, he hangs out for 20 minutes. Maybe I pass the comb over him. I blow the air, I blow
Yeah.
the hair dryer at a distance, whatever. Boom, away we go. We'll see you tomorrow
Yeah.
or in a week or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so it comes down to education, as opposed to some people, it's relationships. It's a relationship with the dog. It's a relationship with the client. So what kind of relationship do you want to have? Some people just throw their hands in the air. Like I've got a friend who's a trainer that's looking to expand his franchise, and somebody within an hour had to cancel their appointment to, as their interview, to be part of the franchise. And he just went, well, if you can't take this seriously, then I don't want you. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not shit happens, life happens.
Yep.
Right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's the same thing. So but by shaving the dog and then trying to explain to somebody what happened versus before the dog comes in, educating them, and it goes like, hey, I might have to shave down your dog. And that
Yeah.
was something that was really cool that I experienced. Is the first groomer that I worked with is like hardcore country girl that's like, used to taming wild horses kind of thing. So
Yeah.
she has no problem telling somebody the time of day, maybe too far, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she'll tell them
Yeah.
beforehand, like, hey, I'm going to shave your dog. And if
Yeah.
you don't like that, then like hit the road.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's a balance, but yeah, you always want quality over quantity, but the way people don't know what they don't know, right? So that's why it's always best to educate. And that's hard for some people because they go like, well, they should know. Well, okay,
No,
but they
you can't
don't.
expect
But
them
some
to.
people don't.
Look at
Yeah.
the pandemic.
Right. Right.
And speaking of like throwing your hands up in the air and being like, you're just not going to be one of my clients. What would be one of your thresholds for kicking like a person out of your dog training program, or even a dog out of your dog training program?
Yeah, so it's, are you prepared to do the work is
Yeah.
really what it comes down to, right? So the times, it's funny because I coach dog trainers now. That's my business is, of course, evolving over time,
Mhm.
and so I have dog trainers that I coach through all kinds of stuff, business and growing their business to six figures, multiple six figures, and how to do that in a way that doesn't burn you out, how to do that in a way that you enjoy your business, that your clients are happy, that you maintain. I haven't had a bad client in years, which for a lot of dog trainers, like a dog trainer friend of mine ran a little workshop on how to have better clients. And I was like, I don't understand why you're doing this thing. Like, I love my clients. He's like, Evan, you're a rare dog trainer. Most of them don't
Yeah.
like their clients, and most of their clients don't like them because they're not focused on the relationship. See, when early on someone asked me, what's the difference between you and Cesar Millan? Because it was the only bit of education that I had.
Yeah.
And I didn't have an answer, and it really bothered me. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And my answer to this day is I care more about people than I do about dogs. Now, some people will hear that and go, well, you don't care about dogs. No, it's not what I
No.
said.
No.
What
No.
I said was I care more about human relationships than I do about dog relationships. Because if I can't connect with you as a human, which is,
Mhm.
it's ultimately why I'm such a good dog trainer, is because I can connect to the human. Because if I can't connect to the human, I
Yes.
can't change the human. If I
No.
can't change the human's behavior, the dog will not have a better life. And so, yeah, that's what ultimately it comes down to. So the people that I have either denied access to me or said, "Hey, I don't think this isn't a good relationship," are people that were in denial of the fact that they had to change, that they
Yeah.
needed to do the work.
Yeah.
Something comes to mind where this lady was dealing with a lot of life trauma. As you know, life happens, and I said part of the program is that the way the dog eats is from your hand. That you're not feeding the dog from a bowl. That's like the foundation of how
Of
I
dog
train
training. Yep.
every dog.
Yep.
And so is the only way your dog's going to eat is, and so they might choose to not eat for a day or two or three.
Mhm.
They might just turn up their nose, but it's a choice. You're not saying you're not allowed to eat. You're saying the only way you're allowed to eat is by doing simple things like sit and come to me, like very, very, very easy things.
Basic. Yeah.
And that sparked a lot of, emotions for her. Right.
Mhm.
And I just went, that's fine. This might not be the training
Type of
program
training
for
for you.
you.
Yeah.
And those dogs ultimately never got any better because it was, as we do, we put our emotions on to our
Oh
other
yeah, for sure.
relationships, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, and then people that that ended early was just, yeah, the people that just weren't prepared to do the work, and that's really all it comes down to.
So, one thing that I struggle with, Evan, is that it's not just you and the relationship with your dog, right? Some of us have like these huge families, and if you even listen to a handful of our episodes, you'll hear me talking about my father.
Mhm.
My father, I often say, in the beginning, I had part-time custody of my dogs because we have a cottage. My father's retired. He grew up where dogs were used for work. Like he grew up in
Yep.
Australia on a farm,
Oh,
and
okay, cool.
dogs were
With
used for work.
kelpies.
And yep, kelpies, you got it. And they never came in the house, and they weren't allowed on the couch, and they weren't allowed doing this and that and the other thing. So when I first got a dog, my dad was like, "What are you doing? This is awful. Like this is disgusting. You're going to bring that thing in your house." And like he's like, "And you need a farm if you have a dog," and all this sort of stuff. And then he retired, and then they slowly became best friends, and now my dad has a special spot and a special blanket on the couch for the dog. And they're like, anyways, so they go up to the cottage together. But again, when we had our first dog, I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now. So then when we got our next two dogs is when I started getting more into the training. And we often mention, I'm not sure if you know her from Canines in the Capital, Michelle. She's a close friend of mine and mentored me in a lot of like the dog training stuff. But I cannot get my dad on board. I can't. He thinks dogs just need to run, and so he takes them to the cottage and they run. They do. They run until like sometimes they come back like barely
They
able to
run into
walk, and I'm like,
porcupines.
please don't do that. Like they run into porcupines, they run into neighbors that threaten to shoot them on their property, and I'm like, that, like I even got Becky, my older one, like e-collar trained, and I'm like, okay, here's what you do at the e, and he's like, I'm not putting that on her. He's like, what's the point in taking them up to the cottage if they can't run? Like, and I'm like, okay. So
Yeah, this is something that comes up a lot.
yes.
This is something that comes up a lot. And so because I've worked with so many people that have, I mean, my first response is always parents are the worst.
Yep.
Right? It's like
Yep.
parents are the worst. And I'm sure my kids would agree. And so, it's parents are the worst, and it's just that's the way they are. Different generations. The interesting thing about Kelpies is, Ted from Mango Dogs and I went to Australia a couple of years ago to teach a seminar on aggression. And the year prior, Ted had gone by himself and went out to a farm where they have Kelpies, where they raise Kelpies and sell Kelpies. And the guy said, okay, Ted said, how many hours do you put into these dogs of training? And the head coordinator, the head trainer said, if we have to put more than 30 minutes into a dog, we sell it as a pet.
Yeah.
So they're genetically, they don't, like when you watch Kelpies work on YouTube, it's amazing, but it's all genetic. They don't do anything with the dogs. They basically just take them out and the dogs know what to do. Right. And then the more refined stuff happens over time. But even that is very, very limited. So for your dad, being a crazy Oz, that's his perspective. So I just, the things that I've tried with other clients is, okay, let's give the parents an ultimatum. And sometimes it's hard when people live with their parents and the parents are typically the same as your dad, too relaxed, right? Too relaxed, no rules, no boundaries, dogs allowed, the poor dog. And it's, what's funny is it's typically the parents that were hard asses.
Yeah.
And then,
yes.
Right. And then the kids have a dog, and then that becomes the grandbaby, and that's the one that gets to do whatever the hell it wants to do. And so I've tried everything from giving the grandparents ultimatums in different ways, like, and typically from a place of just fatigue, not frustration, but fatigue, just like, hey, like, and we role play and we do all the things of how to have the conversation. And it's basically just like, I've tried, I've been here, I've done this thing. So here's what's going to happen. I'm actually going to rehome the dog. I'm taking the dog to the pound.
Oh my God.
And it's a bluff. And then they're like, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I don't have a choice. Now, in some cases, you got to understand that some of these conversations are not around. I mean, what your dogs are doing is far from ideal. Running into porcupines, going on neighbors' properties, and potentially running in front of traffic and things like that. But when we have dogs that are aggressive, like you can't be feeding both dogs chips from the couch, like. They're going to kill each other, but they don't hear that. And even though there's been fights and whatever, it's, oh, well, they always downplay it after it's happened. And so sometimes we've tried ultimatums of just like, and even doing things like arranging for the dogs to go somewhere else for the weekend and just be like, I rehome them. Yeah, I told you I was going to do it. Right. Yeah. Because like it's sometimes, extreme measures, because this is a safety concern. Right. So like, to be blunt, screw the parents. They weren't listening, they weren't being respectful.
Yeah.
Right. So like, so what if I, have a little white lie here, and make you feel like shit in the process?
Yes.
Like you're not listening. What else do you want me to do? But getting angry never works. It's like any conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And then ultimately doing other things like moving out, getting some independence. You're old enough to have a dog. You're old enough to not live with your parents. Yeah. So, doing things like that. So, and then just removing the luxury of, we have a cottage with my parents, but hey, Dad, guess what? You can't follow the rules. These are my dogs. These are not your dogs. These are my dogs. And so they're going to be in crates. There's a padlock on the crate. Like, no, you can't, whatever. which could be dangerous if you're leaving. So you have to really think it out. But
Yes. Yeah.
ultimately, just removing the problem, taking full responsibility. So rather than being frustrated with your dad for not doing the thing, we have to take full responsibility and go like, I just don't put my dogs in those situations.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
The
hard.
porcupine. So
Yeah.
the porcupine situation was hilarious because, like I said, so I've got Becky and Gibbon, and Becky is the culprit who she learned this from Scraps, taking off into the forest for like 2 hours at a time,
Right.
and they always come back, but you don't know
Yeah.
what they're doing, you don't know where they are, and who they
Scary.
are potentially pissing off. And
Yeah.
anyways, so I got Becky e-collar trained, and I went up and I was like, look, this is how this works. I showed him and everything. And when I'm there, of course, they listen to me. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
they don't do that for me. And I'm like, because you don't have any rules with them. But anyways, so we're up at the cottage. I was out floating on the lake. I had Becky with the e-collar. They're both sitting on the deck where I can see them. There's lounging in the sun, just having the time of their lives. Everybody's happy. My dad arrives at the cottage. He says to me, where are the dogs? I said, on the deck. He said, well, no, they're not. And I said, oh, well, just grab Becky's e-collar and she'll come back. He said, no, I took it off. And I was like, why did you take it off?
Oh,
And
no.
he's like, well, what's the point of bringing them up here if they can't run or whatever? So anyways, I was like, he's like, okay, well, I'll go find them. So he gets on the four-wheeler. He goes trying to find the dogs. I'm sitting there with my friend, trying to relax for once. And my Gibbon, my Weimaraner, comes back and my friend just goes, oh, no. And I look over, face full of quills. So I was like fuming because everything was all good. And I'm like, and I told him after the fact. So I'm like, okay, get out the pliers, get out the clips. I'm like, hold him, Dad. And he's like, oh, this is awful. I can't do this. I can't do this. This is horrible. This is horrible. This is just awful. And I'm like, hold the dog.
You caused this.
Exactly.
This is your
like,
fault.
Man up and hold the dog. Anyways, we got all the quills out. Most of them, it took them obviously back to the vet because they migrate and such. But anyways, the joke in our family is that my dad's going to have to start giving me damage deposits when he takes the dogs because it always results in a vet visit of some sort. But
and what's supposed to be a relaxing time turns into trauma,
Right.
So
right.
I would just avoid the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put an e-collar on your dad.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, Dad. But some of the other questions I had is sometimes it's hard. Like another common problem, I don't know if you agree or not, is other people's behaviors towards your dogs, right? So you're out at, you got a new puppy like Vero has, and she's been very good at it too, and everybody wants to touch your dog. You're out in public, or again, like family members or whatever, you might not agree or whatever in certain situations and stuff. And sort of, what is your threshold like around that? Like, I know training is training, but if you're like out just like throwing the ball with the dog at the park or whatever, do you let other people approach your dog as long as it's in a safe and healthy, respectful way?
Yeah, I've gone through waves, of being uptight and too relaxed and all that stuff. So I think ultimately, like, as long as your dog is safe and it's not creating more problems, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? So like the problem with dog parks, let's say, is you have well-intentioned people that are uneducated. So my dog comes over, you come over to my dog, you start petting and loving my dog. And then your dog comes over to you and gets jealous. Now we have a dog fight. Or that's Vega, right? My black lab. If you start giving her affection, I will immediately call her back if there's any other dogs present. Yeah. Right? Because she'll get pissy because she wants all the affection for herself. Right? And she also doesn't have any problem putting a dog to the ground. Yeah. And so, that's where it's my responsibility. So, and then equally, like, it depends on your dog, right? Like Mufasa, like, don't pet Mufasa, especially from age 3 to 10. Now he's a lot more chill. I don't know that he knows where he is all the time, but he's so he's more relaxed, but with age can come the opposite too. They can get more surly
Yeah.
in their age.
That's exactly what I was just going to say too, because Becky was literally one of the most submissive dogs I think I'd ever seen in my life. But as she's gotten older, that has like significantly changed, and the e-collar definitely helps with that. Because yeah, and same thing when I go to the dog park sometimes with my dad, I call her back when other dogs are around, because it's a 50-50. She's either going to be fine with them sniffing her butt saying hello, or she's going to
Yeah.
turn around and tell them what's what, which can result in an altercation.
Yeah,
So
so when you have a dog like that, you need to know how to read other dogs,
yeah,
right? If she
Mhm.
snaps at them, is this dog likely to respect that, or it doesn't have a clue and it's gonna turn
and
into a dog fight?
I haven't gotten better. I don't know how you come along in reading other dogs. It's almost like kids. Like you know your own kids. You know how to predict their behaviors. I haven't figured that out with other dogs yet. What would be a good way to? How do you suggest learning that? Is it literally just
So when I would
experience?
teach that as a course, like I used to have clients that had been through private lessons, and I would go start, pay attention to your dog and look at the signs. Right now, if you have a French bulldog, if you have a bulldog, if you have any sort of push faced, you have a pug, you've got anything that was artificially made, it's going to be hard for you to learn body language, right?
Mhm.
Like reading a bulldog is like the hardest thing. Frenchies are a lot easier, but bulldogs, like you don't
Yeah,
know if they're going to kill you or if they're, now there
because
are there are signs, but they always sound like they're growling because they're just,
yes, they
Yeah.
sound like pigs.
they can't breathe, and their tails are, tucked into their butts, and
Sometimes like a
they're
belly button.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just they're very so anyone with a dog that's not like that, start paying attention to your dog. When they're happy, how fast is their tail wagging? When they're uncertain, how fast is their tail wagging? Is it
Mhm.
high? Is it low? Is it this? Is it that?
Right.
When they're curious, what are their ears doing? So you put all that together, and then you just watch another dog and see the result of something. Like you stick your hand into your pocket and a dog looks at you. Do their ears go up? Do their ears go back? Do their ear and so
Yeah.
you just start. It's just a game of deduction, but
Okay.
also seeing how they interact. But basically, you just need to pay attention at the dog park, right?
Mhm.
Start just spending 30 seconds, set a timer of just laser focus on, okay, this one did this and then that happened. Okay, that one
Right.
did that and then that happened. And then, okay, we put those two dogs together and then this happened, they both, one looked like that, one went back, one went forward, and then this happened,
Okay.
and so it's just, but you can only radically focus on that stuff for so long. But dog parks are great. And
But my question is it generalizable for the most part? Because
yes,
like sometimes when like if Becky does like a little jump back, to me, for her, I know that means play. She's like, yeah, now they're gonna start the chase.
yep.
But I've seen other dogs though where they do the jump, where they stand up straight, like woof, woof, and the jump back and forth, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden they're pissed. So I'm like, huh,
Yeah, it's playful, but then that it means that dog was ultimately more insecure, and
okay,
therefore they felt like they needed to then overreact to compensate. I want to play. Wait a minute, I got scared a little bit. Let me overcompensate by
okay,
pushing you away.
okay,
So it
huh,
was initially still play.
yeah,
It was still that initial sign, but then the other dog did something that was probably more advanced a little bit. The other dog then got spooked a little bit, and their
okay,
response to spook, their fight drive is slightly higher than their flight drive,
yeah,
and therefore rather than just running away, they stood up for themselves and said, "Can I back you off?" And then if that dog backs off a little bit, then the next time they do their little play bounce, you'll see less of it and less of it and less of it until they're finally comfortable to go, okay, when I play bounce and you come towards me, you're not going to kill me. And then they
ah.
play.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Thank you for that.
So it's pretty much universal. A play bow is
Okay.
a play bow.
Yes.
It's just what happens afterwards. And that's the thing, is that it's the same thing as a conversation, right? It's a conversation in 2021 where I say something, it triggers you, and then you respond in one way or another,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
When you have these, because the conversation is changing so radically, right? So quickly, because it's a new conversation, and like it's very rare for people to go from "Hi, nice to meet you" to "Let me chase you around the park,"
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
We just stand and
Mhm.
and debate things, or we stand and give opinions or whatever. But they're going from anywheres from play to fight. It's very rare for people to have those kind of conversations. Such an expansive conversation in such a short period of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
also rare for, you don't typically see, the equivalent of like a 70 or 80-year-old person trying to interact with a kid at the park,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you get a 4-month-old puppy
Absolutely.
and a 9-year-old or 10 or 12-year-old dog. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a short
Yep.
conversation,
Yes, it is.
right?
Yeah, I see that at the park with Ralph, where he's just like, he just runs to everybody. He's like, "You're my best friend. I love
Yeah.
you."
Yeah. And they're like, "I'm 70. Get out of my face."
Yep.
Yes. Yeah,
And
exactly.
then he turns around. Okay.
Want to play Minecraft? No, I do
Yeah.
not.
What's Minecraft? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, body language it's a language.
Yes.
You can
Absolutely.
learn it, but it's kind of like, so if you spend, it's kind of like being like going somewhere and living somewhere. I don't
Mhm.
speak French because I never lived in a French speaking country.
Yeah.
In my
Right.
opinion, it's really the only way to be fully fluent. Like I'm fluent in dog language, right?
Yes.
But I spent, over a decade with a
Yeah.
pack of dogs.
Mhm.
And that's what
Right.
you need. Like you'll never learn the language. You can learn parts of the language living with your dog. You can learn your dog's language. But when you're trying to read and predict behavior, right? Because that's really what you need to do is
Yes.
predict the behavior. If
Yeah.
you have a dog that's going to turn and snap at another dog, you need to be able to read both and anticipate what's going to happen. So, and then there's the intuition factor in that as well. Do I need to intervene, or do I need to let this play out? Can I let this play out? Or is this most likely, because you really are guessing, but it's, you're deducting that this will go well or this will not go well. So it's living with one dog, there's generals, but that's it.
There's so many variables involved too, and it's why I
Yeah.
think your business is so successful, and many others. It's a goal of mine. Like I said, I know my own dogs well. It's figuring out the other ones too, and that's definitely a goal of mine.
So when I taught the course, I did 5 sessions, and we broke the dogs. I got people to focus on just one body part of the dog.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
did the tail, we did the body, we did the head position, and then other parts of the head, and then put it all together.
Nice.
Right? So, ears, eyes, mouth was kind of one thing, and those could
Yeah.
all be separate weeks of really breaking down the dog's body language. Did the lip go up? Did it go down? Did it this? Did it that? Is the dog's mouth open? Is it closed? Are they panting? Are they not panting? Are their eyes open? Are they bug-eyed? Are they squinting? Are they turning their head away? Are their ears up? Are they back? Are they flat? Are they forward? Are they down? So it's all of those things are subtle reactions,
Yeah.
Right.
and they're saying something.
Yeah.
Right. And then the last week we combined it. Okay, the head is up, but the tail is down, and the tail is down, and the head is up. Now both are up, and now both are moving. Now both are flat. Now this. So it's one paw is up. That's a thing, right? One paw is up and the back. One paw is up and their body is forward. They all mean different things.
Yeah.
And so it can be overwhelming. And I've had a lot of clients say, "I will never be able to learn this." And it's like, well, yeah, not with that attitude.
No,
You
no.
just got to spend more time.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you want to be immersed, go work at a doggy daycare.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you really want to learn the language, go work at a busy doggy daycare that has very few rules, right?
Yes.
Where dogs are just doing whatever the hell they want and just sit in the corner, just be
Yeah.
a fly on a wall and just observe, right?
Yeah.
How intense did that get in a period of time? And then watching, the terriers come flying from across the room when there's a scuffle, and watching, the doodles think that everyone's playing, and
Yeah.
watching, the chihuahuas sit and hide and shake in the corner. So it's, until they're
Yeah.
in someone's arms. So it's a language that can be learned for sure.
All right.
All right.
How we doing
We're
there, Vero?
approaching the end of our episode.
I feel like I could talk forever.
I know. Can this be a 3-hour episode?
We can do it again for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to fire off some yes or no questions.
Okay.
All right. Based on the theory that dogs look like their owners, is your next dog going to be an Afghan hound?
Now, is never an option?
Absolutely not, is the answer. Your first job was working a lemonade stand. The famous saying goes, when life gives you lemons, squirt the juice in the eyes of your enemies. Is this true?
No. Kill him with honey. Drown him in a pot of honey.
Out of all of your pets, is it safe to say that your least favorite is your cat?
No.
All right. You've worked in the past as a pet groomer. Would you ever use thinning shears to trim your long, luscious hair?
I have.
You have. Ooh. Anyone who listens to Doggett Style the podcast knows that you have named your mustache Santiago. Have you named any other body parts?
No comment.
No comments.
No comment? No comment?
Yes, obviously yes.
We're going to take this off
Obviously yes.
In some of your videos, you proudly display a ukulele. Are you part of a ukulele string quartet?
Oh, I wish. I didn't know that was a thing.
Do you play the ukulele?
Yes.
We can see one in the background right now.
Yeah.
I also play those instruments that are in the background right now.
Oh, cool.
While working with Cesar Millan, did he ever correct one of your behaviors with a ch?
No. I was an angel.
Okay. Was your decision to train hunting dogs influenced by the popular Nintendo light gun shooter video game Duck Hunt?
Yes.
Oh my God. Was it the laughing dog that got you every time? I hated that guy.
I needed to train him to not be so maniacal.
Right?
Yeah.
You're triggering me, boy. That's funny.
And the last question, is your podcast sponsor Ricky single? I'm asking for a friend.
He does have a dating service. It just hasn't been announced yet.
Oh my God.
Cool. Good questions.
Evan, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I've been a fan right from the start. One of our first episodes was like looking at a couple of the different online personalities, and you were definitely one of our faves. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. You're super knowledgeable. I've got goals to follow now, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, you're welcome. When the world gets back to normal, we'll be offering a retreat. Don't tell anybody, but so maybe we'll see you there.
Oh yes,
Ooh.
Guaranteed.
Dog retreat.
And that's a wrap for today. Thanks again to Doggett Style Training, and please join us next week on
Let's
Boop
Boop Snoots. Boop.